It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Monday, October 7th. I'm Wendy Corr, bringing you headlines from the Cowboy State Daily newsroom, brought to you by the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake. From 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., Monday through Friday, Cowboy State Daily's Jake Nichols brings to life the latest news, weather, sports, and in-depth conversations that matter to you. The Elk Fire that began with a lightning strike southeast of Dayton and blew up overnight last Sunday has continued to blow up since. The fire was last estimated to be around 73,000 acres on Sunday. Cowboy State Daily's Greg Johnson spoke to some of those who had evacuated or been told to be ready to leave their homes. They said there's a feeling of helplessness and fear at having to watch the flames and smoke advance without being able to do anything.
It's just a dangerous, unpredictable situation for the folks there. The whole town of Dayton is on set status, which means the next status is go. It's go and get out. A lifelong resident of Dayton explained how he learned that Dayton had been put on set status. They sent out a notice at 3 a.m. on Saturday, woke people up. He went outside and he said the whole mountain was just glowing orange. It was very surreal.
But Johnson said there are some signs of hope.
YDOT posted a photo Sunday morning that one of their staffers got from an area overlooking the fire, and it showed a single farmhouse is totally safe. All around it is black. The firefighters did a good job protecting that home.
The Elk Fire is raging on the mountains that inspired Ian Munsick's Wyoming brand of music, and his own family's ranch is among the many that now sit in harm's way. For Munsick, the Elk Fire that's grown so fast and is threatening to consume the towns of Dayton and Parkman is deeply personal. Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean spoke to the country music star, who started a relief fund to help his friends and neighbors.
So this is kind of his childhood on fire, and that's why he started the GoFundMe, which I just checked, and it is at 92,000 so far. So, he kicked it off with 15,000 from himself, 15,000 from his wife, Caroline. But so now it is tripled from the initial donation.
This is not the first time Munsick has seen fire coming for Dayton and his family's ranch. About 20 years ago, he said he remembers packing up everything in the family's horse trailer. The fire didn't end up making it all the way to the Munsick family's ranch at that point, but it did burn parts of Dayton then. The Elk Fire has burned now through the scars of that 1996 blaze and is still 0% contained. 15 inmates incarcerated at the Wyoming Honor Conservation Camp in Newcastle, one of the state's 2 minimum security prisons, have been allowed outside their prison walls this summer to help fight some of Wyoming's out-of-control wildfires. The Wyoming Smoke Busters are a joint operation between the Wyoming State Forestry Division and the Wyoming Department of Corrections. Cowboy State Daily's Jen Coker spoke to members of the crew who've been putting in long hours of hard work this summer.
The people who join the team are extremely happy to be there. They see it as a great opportunity to get out of the prison and really to give back to their community. And it's grueling work. When they're not on fires, they're out thinning trees and doing a number of forestry projects.
The program dates back to 1964. Inmates approved to become smoke busters have to pass a strict multidisciplinary team process, which means they can't have been charged for murder or other violent crimes or have a history of absconding. A remote and rugged piece of federal land in the Laramie Range Mountains is a paradise for hunters, and the U.S. Forest Service should keep it. That's what critics of a pending land exchange told Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines, referencing nearly 1,300 acres in the Green Mountain area near Laramie Peak in Albany County that's proposed to be swapped for 804 acres in 2 parcels owned by a private investment company based in Denver.
The way the guy described it was it's basically wilderness without being officially designated wilderness. You better eat your Wheaties before you hike in there, but if you do, there's some great elk hunting, potential bighorn sheep hunting back there, and they hate to see that lost to the public in exchange for this land that's maybe a little bit lower down, a little bit more easily accessible, which of course means it's can more easily become crowded.
A notice of decision from the Forest Service, expected to be in favor of the exchange, might be issued this month or in November. That won't make the deal final, but it will signal that the agency intends to move forward with the exchange. Wyoming's wild turkey season opened September 1st, but only for archery. The Wyoming Game and Fish Department doesn't offer a tag for tenderizing a turkey with a car windshield. One family found that out the hard way last week while driving U.S. Highway 14 from Powell to Cody. They told Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi that the turkey decided to lift off and fly across the highway right as the family's Chevy Suburban zoomed by.
A grown male turkey can weigh up to 22 pounds. So these are hefty animals, and going 70 miles per hour down the road can be potentially fatal because, if a turkey's hefty enough and you're going fast enough that it gets through, that's nothing to scoff at.
Fortunately, they were able to navigate back to Cody despite their shattered windshield, which cost $350 to replace. That comes out to a steep $17.50 per pound of tenderized turkey. I'll be back in just 20 seconds with more news.
When we say community is the heart of Hilltop, we're talking about a team of bankers committed to improving the place we call home. A team that shows up every day to help businesses thrive and gives back to our neighbors through time, attention, and service. We're inspired by the way our bankers give back because that's one of the many qualities that makes us truly a community bank. Hilltop Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Pumpkin guts spewed across the Washakie County Fairgrounds with wet, echoing thuds and squeals of joy at Saturday's 2024 Wyoming State Pumpkin Wayof and Oktoberfest. After crowning this year's state giant pumpkin champions, the huge squashes were hoisted 175 feet into the air and dropped, exploding spectacularly, which was captured on video by Cowboy State Daily videographer Riley Strand.
I think the estimate was just over 2,000 people showed up, which is pretty spectacular because I think there's only, just under 5,000 people that live there. So that was impressive. The biggest pumpkin of the day belonged to Lovell's Chad Curtinbaugh. It was 1,254 pounds, which was mind-blowing. I think everyone had a blast, and we did document it on video. And that video is up on the website now. And I think it really portrays the emotions from the day.
You can see Riley's full video at cowboystatedaily.com. Nate Woodruff may not have been born in Wyoming, but he shares some of the same values, Western attitude, and a passion for good whiskey with his Cowboy State neighbors. Woodruff, who now lives in Pinedale, told Cowboy State Daily's Dale Killingback that he's turned that love of whiskey into the greatest job ever, tasting and reviewing the spirit for his online following.
He started in New Jersey on the East Coast, but he said one day he was just hiking in the woods, and he had already been doing some whiskey reviews, but he put a bottle on a rock in the middle of a stream, took a photo of it, did a review of the whiskey, posted it on Instagram, and it just blew up. And he said he found his niche, and so he's been doing that for several years and is doing very well. In fact, he's going to start a podcast in the coming year and just has had all kinds of opportunities traveling overseas to Scotland distilleries and other places around the world to promote whiskey.
As someone who has been to all the lower 48 states already on adventures, traveled internationally, and carried a lot of bottles onto many mountaintops, Woodruff says he appreciates how fortunate he is. And it's October, a time to relay stories of haunted places and tales of mystery from around the Cowboy State. Cowboy State Daily's Jackie Dorothy brings us a tale of a lost treasure, a mysterious skeleton, and cries from deep within the earth, which haunted a Fremont County family more than 80 years ago on their homestead near Badwater Creek.
We have newspaper accounts dating back to October 8th, 1940, when this family on Badwater dug up not only a ring, which they lost, but they also found a skeleton. And like any teenager, their son stuck that under their bed and kept it in the house for maybe just a short while. But what soon followed was that this newly dug cellar where they discovered the skeleton, it started giving the family a little bit of creeps because they would hear every time they went down there earthly moans and earthly cries.
Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean had a first-hand experience with ghosts at the historic Sheridan Inn when she dined at the Open Range Grill there last week. Because she's not one to eat and run, particularly after a great dining experience, Renee was just leisurely looking through some news articles on her cell phone when she caught a kind of whirling motion out of the corner of her eye.
It was like something moving and I heard a sound. And then the waitress is walking over to me and she's picking up a glass that is rolled right by my table. I'm realizing that something has happened with the glass that really shouldn't have happened. This woman is telling how she saw the glass just scoot on the table and kind of twirl end over end after it fell off the table. And the table was perfectly flat. There was no jiggle at all. There was no one walking around that area. It was dry, it's a wooden table too. So it's not like it's a completely necessarily smooth table. You can see the ridges from the wood. So I can't explain it.
Unusual events like this happen quite frequently at Open Range, according to the general manager, and not just upstairs in the restaurant. There's a basement too, where lights sometimes turn themselves on and off and doors sometimes close themselves. And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the daily newsletter button on cowboystatedaily.com. And you can watch this newscast every day by clicking subscribe on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to drop in on the Cowboy State Daily Morning Show with Jake Nichols, Monday through Friday from 6 to 10 a.m. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.